Well, as expected, the Carolina Panthers have made Heisman-winning quarterback Bryce Young the number one overall pick in the 2023 draft. We didn't think it was going to be that way after the Panthers traded up to get that number one spot with the Chicago Bears. C.J. Stroud became the betting favorite to be the pick, and then over time, dribs and drabs of information trickled out. The betting lines changed, the reports multiplied, and before you knew it, Bryce Young was the guy. And as we saw some craziness with the betting markets this week with Will Levis having his odds improve, the key was there was never a report, never a suggestion, never anything coming out of Carolina that it was going to be anything but Bryce Young. And if you're the Panthers, you can't change without getting the word out there ahead of time so your fan base is ready for it. It would have been a great surprise if it had happened. It would have been a good development for my business generally. But instead, as we expected, Bryce Young becomes the guy. And this is a calculated risk for the Carolina Panthers because he's not a prototypical quarterback. We talk about analytics all the time as it relates to game decisions. Analytics has always been a part of personnel evaluation, and the analytics are not in favor of this pick. He is not prototypical size, height, or weight, or hand size for a quarterback, and that's an issue. That is where the Panthers have decided to roll the dice on a guy with an upside, but also a downside. And the analytics of personnel evaluation tell teams that chances are this isn't going to work. But there's still a chance it will, and that's why the Panthers did it. They're reaching for the brass ring. They want the franchise quarterback. They're willing to take a little risk in the hopes of getting a significant reward. And now, as we go forward with the other picks that come, the other quarterbacks that get drafted, it'll be that same apples-to-apples comparison that we've seen with multiple quarterbacks being taken off the board in the same first round of the same draft. Who works out, who doesn't work out, who got it right, who got it wrong. And the folks who get it wrong often end up getting shown the door sooner than later by the team they were working for when that pick was made. So we know for now, Bryce Young is the guy for the Panthers. We don't know how it's going to go, but it'll be fun to watch it play out over the coming months and years. The draft officially began with the Panthers taking Bryce Young at number one. Unofficially, it started at number two, where we didn't know what the Texans were going to do, and it was all over the place. The betting markets were swinging like crazy, but ultimately, the Texans go with a quarterback. Bryce Young, the Ohio State signal caller, who was supposed to be dropping below S2 scores, and there were some concerns out there from coaches and scouts and others who thought that maybe there were leadership issues with C.J. Stroud and other things that would make it difficult for him to be the best possible quarterback in the NFL. The Texans undeterred by that. At a time when it looked like new head coach DeMeco Ryans would want maybe a defensive player, they opt for a quarterback who provides the foundation for Houston moving forward. It's either going to work or it's not. And if it doesn't, the reality is they'll be right back in position to draft another future franchise quarterback, hopefully, at some point down the road. But if they think this is the guy, if they think he can become the superstar that they need post Deshaun Watson, they're willing to roll the dice, take the chance, and hope that C.J. Stroud can become a true franchise quarterback and turn around one of the most dysfunctional franchises in the NFL. Well, the first real surprise of the night happened with pick number 3. We expected the Cardinals to trade down. We didn't expect the Texans to trade up. They get back-to-back, number 2, number 3. With number 2, they get their quarterback in C.J. Stroud. Number 3, they get Alabama edge rusher Will Anderson Jr. There were thoughts maybe he would slip behind Tyree Wilson. There was a thought that maybe he was rated a little too highly. Chris Sims wasn't a big believer in Will Anderson. DeMeco Ryans, the Texans coach, and GM Nick Caserio clearly were. And the Cardinals got a lot to fall from 3 to number 12, and it's smart. You know, this is a team that's done a bunch of stupid things, frankly, over the course of the last year, starting with the Kyler Murray homework clause in his long-term contract. But to get more lottery tickets, more opportunities to make your team better, extra first-round pick next year, more stuff this year, more players that will come in and help your team. You never know who's going to hit. You never know who's going to miss. The more lottery tickets you have, the better chance you have to have a great team around your franchise quarterback that you hope will be there for a long time. Now, the Texans hope that both C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson will be the anchors of their team for many years to come as they try to turn things around. You know, it is kind of funny. The two most dysfunctional teams in the NFL right now, the Texans and Cardinals, are the ones who do business at number 3. We'll see how it works out for both of them moving forward. There was a lot of buzz about Florida quarterback Anthony Richardson as the draft got closer. The betting markets reflected that the Colts were the favorites to take him. And in this case, the betting markets were correct. Anthony Richardson becomes the 4th overall pick in the draft. This is a guy who could have gone in a lot of different directions, but we posted at PFT on Thursday afternoon. This is the one who's got the superstar potential, the highest possible ceiling, the guy who can become a franchise quarterback out of this class. With everyone else, there were questions, there were concerns, there were issues. With Richardson, there's only potential, and it's unlimited potential. He truly can be a superstar. So for the Colts, who have gone from sure thing in Peyton Manning to sure thing in Andrew Luck, they roll the dice on Anthony Richardson at 4th overall, and they hope that he becomes better than either of them. And he could be if it all works out, if he develops, because he has incredible athletic skills. He's a quarterback who is fit for the realities of today's game, where you run and you run and you run some more to set up the throw. Fascinating to see what the Colts have done at a time when many thought they would go Will Levis at 4. They go Anthony Richardson, possibly keeping the Seahawks from getting him at number 5 and anyone else from getting him after that. Richardson, now a Colt, and the Colts finally can stop ricocheting around from franchise veteran quarterback to veteran quarterback. Well, Pete Carroll got started as a defensive backs coach. How could he not fall in love with Illinois cornerback Devin Witherspoon, Chris Sims guy, a missile in run support, goes and makes tackles, throws his body around. You know, it's somewhat fitting that the Seahawks would finally break from looking for low-round corners and focus on maybe getting a high-round guy and turning him into a superstar. They could have had Jalen Carter. Many thought they would take him if he was there at 5. Now Carter falls out of the top 5, but Witherspoon enters the top 5, the highest drafted cornerback this year, and a guy on whom the Seahawks will rely to put that defense back among the NFL's elite. The Arizona Cardinals have done plenty of things wrong in recent months. They finally have done something right, working the draft board to perfection. After trading from 3 to 12, they jump back up to number 6 in a move with the Detroit Lions, who had that 6th overall pick from the Rams as the last piece of the Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff trade. The Cardinals get to 6, and they take the guy that many thought they would have taken if they'd stayed put at number 3, Ohio State tackle Paris Johnson. And this is brilliant by the Cardinals, who earlier tonight were found to have tampered with Coach Jonathan Gannon and gave up some draft capital to the Eagles. They pick up some draft capital through the net move, getting the guy, as mentioned, that they possibly would have taken at number 3. And to move from 12 to 6, they give up that 12th pick, and they give up pick number 34. But they still have number 33 this year, a first-round pick next year, and a third-round pick next year that they got from the Texans as part of the move down to 12. So, again, for all the things the Cardinals have done wrong, they have done something right, and they get a tackle that their quarterback Kyler Murray very much wanted to help keep him healthy once he's finally 100% cured and ready to go from his torn ACL that he suffered during the 2022 season. Some thought Texas Tech edge rusher Tyree Wilson would go as high as number 2, and I was told this afternoon his window opened at 2, closed at 7. And at the very last possible pick before the window closed, the Raiders took Tyree Wilson, picking up an edge rusher. They already have Max Crosby and Chandler Jones, but Wilson becomes the future best available player on the board at that point, a guy with a foot problem that some teams had concerns about. I had heard some teams had taken him off the board altogether. But if you had him on the board, he was one of your best players, and he had been cleared in late March by Dr. Robert Anderson to fully return and participate in football, ready to go, everything fine. Raiders may have gotten a guy that they can pair with Max Crosby for years to come in a division where it pays to get after the quarterback because there are so many great quarterbacks that they have to contend with. So the Raiders get a guy that should have maybe gone earlier, and now they have a better defense moving forward into 2023. I had been saying that a playoff contender, if it could acquire Texas running back Bijan Robinson, could become an instant Super Bowl contender. As it stands, the Falcons, a fringe contender in recent years, 7-10 in 2022, 7-10 in 2021. They get Bijan Robinson with the 8th overall pick in the draft. Now, the message to Tyler Algier is, we really like you, but not enough to pass on a guy who could be a transformational talent, a guy they can get on the field in multiple positions, running back slot. They could put Algier in the backfield. Bijan Robinson in the slot allows them to give Desmond Ridder, their second-year quarterback, everything he needs to try to develop. And it suddenly makes the Falcons contenders in the NFC South, a depleted division where it really feels like it's up for grabs. Adding a guy like Bijan Robinson who makes a difference from the get-go could make things a lot better for the Falcons. So a running back goes top 10 for the first time since Saquon Barkley in 2018. Bijan Robinson, regarded by many as one of the top 3 talents in the entire draft, lands at number 8. Georgia defensive tackle Jalen Carter took no visits to teams beyond the top 10. When that first came out, there was a thought that maybe he had gotten a guarantee via his agent Drew Rosenhaus that he wouldn't be there after pick number 10, owned by the Philadelphia Eagles. As it turned out, the Eagles traded up a spot with the Chicago Bears to ensure that they wouldn't get jumped by someone out of the top 10 that wanted to get Jalen Carter. The Eagles moved up to 9, and they sealed the deal for the Georgia defensive tackle, the guy who many think was the best player in the draft, who fell for reasons unrelated to skill and ability, and who needs to be properly motivated to get the most out of his skills at any given time. Maybe sliding all the way to number 9 will be the thing that gets his attention, that gets his motivation and determination to be the best player he can be. Either way, the Eagles, the NFC champions, emerged from the draft with one of the very best players, and the rich continue to potentially get even richer in the NFC. Well, the Bears, after trading down not once but twice, finally made a pick. They were number 1. They went to number 9. They were number 9. They went to number 10. And with the 10th pick, the Bears pick up a tackle to help block for their great young quarterback, Justin Fields. It's Darnell Wright from Tennessee, also a Huntington, West Virginia native, becomes that guy who helps bolster an offensive line that needs to do better if Justin Fields is going to develop as a passer, buying him more time to find a receiver down the field so he doesn't rely upon those great running abilities and take off when any pressure arises. Right, the first piece for the Bears in an effort to try to build up a team around Justin Fields that can be very competitive in a wide open NFC. It's up for grabs right now. People assume the Lions will just run the division. Any of those 4 teams can take it, and the Bears, if they draft wisely, could be a team that emerges as the NFC North champions. Darnell Wright, a candidate to help be a key player as the Bears try to do that in 2023.